The daughter of a German spy falls for an American intelligence agent assigned to recruit her for infiltrating a social group of Nazis living abroad in post-World War II Brazil. But will things fall apart when the job involves kindling the love of an old flame within the group? This is the premise of Alfred Hitchcock's 1946 suspense film, Notorious. And that's the film we're digging into this week on Movie Bones. Okay, folks, welcome to this week's episode of Movie Bones. And last week we kind of left you with a bit of a cliffhanger, or the opposite of a cliffhanger, really, a spoiler, because Ryan had professed that he believed that this movie, which is Notorious, it's an Alfred Hitchcock film starring Ingrid Bergman, is going to he already predicted, he knows this is going to be a Fortune and Glory film. So what else can I do? But I'm going to give you the floor, Ryan. Go ahead. Tell us about Ingrid Bergman and just go take it away.
Well, I can begin by saying Ingrid Bergman was exactly how I predicted her to be, and she was fantastic, folks. Fantastic. I have not watched a movie with her yet that I have gone, I wouldn't want to see that again. And I will be honest with you, I have watched now 3 movies with her in it. She is, obviously, if you didn't know this, she is one of the stars of Casablanca, which is a fantastic film that we'll eventually get to if we haven't got to it yet. But we'll eventually get to it. She is also a star of the film of a term that we like to throw around in this day and age called gaslighting.
Ah, yes.
But that's not the name of the film. The name of the film is actually Gaslight.
Yeah.
And then here she is once again, this time starring opposite Cary Grant in the movie Notorious, a spy thriller about the time period in which she lives in, which is Nazi Germany. Oh, it's about Nazis, not in Germany.
Maybe it was a little bit unclear on my part, but I think that the film starts just a little bit after. Is it just a little bit after World War II?
Yeah, I would say a little bit after World War II. And if it's still going on, you're just trying to figure out what they're trying to figure out in the film is who's the Nazi in America.
Yeah, so just so you guys know out there, just to give a quick synopsis of the film. This is about the character Alicia Huberman. That's the Ingrid Bergman character. She's the daughter of a German spy and traitor who is recruited by an American agent named Devlin, and he's played by Cary Grant, to use her family connection and the notoriety her father had within the ex-Nazi enclave in Rio de Janeiro to infiltrate the group and gain valuable information about their activities. And along the way, she's asked to rekindle the kind of a flame with a relationship that, at least with an acquaintance that had thought of himself as someone who kind of held a torch for her at one time, although she seemed to be disinterested. But it still forms enough of a connection within the group to this man named Alexander Sebastian, played by Claude Rains, as a means of gaining trust, so far as to even marry him. This complicates matters as she's already fallen for Devlin, and he's at least expressed an interest in her. And that's the story, that's the setup of the film. And I have to agree totally. My favorite part of the film is definitely Ingrid Bergman. She does shine pretty much whatever I've seen her in, basically. She's the main attraction here. I mean, you've expressed some interest in Cary Grant, and your estimation of him is rising. I kind of have some disagreement on that. For me, actually, the film actually highlights to me how much I've come to appreciate, or am growing an appreciation for Claude Rains. His performance as Alexander Sebastian is rather subtle and torn in ways that make him a villain that has more dimension to him, and he pulls the most out of that. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's talk about Cary Grant for a minute, because as far as I've seen him, at least, this is my impression of him and his role so far. He plays a very similar character in that he's this very kind of, like a stoic 50s male, typical male character. He embodies a certain kind of 50s male aesthetic. He feels very detached, almost kind of aloof. He does it seemed to be a little bit jealous of the fact that when he finds out that, Ingrid Bergman's character is supposed to, is actually being instructed to go and rekindle this flame because he's got feelings for her himself right now. But he doesn't again, it's that kind of like, I am going to get jealous and I'm going to kind of just talk down to you. I'm going to talk, kind of coldly. So that kind of rubs me the wrong way, and so it keeps me at a distance from his characters, I think, because he does play this character in multiple films, and it keeps me at a distance too. But tell me about your experience, because I know it's different.
Well, I will say my biggest critique of this film probably comes down to at times it doesn't really super feel like it knows what it wants to be. Does it want to be a spy thriller or does it want to be a romance movie? That can kind of hinder things, and so I understand where you're coming at with his character, because his character is like this supposed to be this spy who is kind of her handler over this whole mission, but because he so quickly falls in love, and it is very quick where you can tell that he's in love. What happens is he becomes pretty compromised pretty fast, but he's unwilling to share that information with anybody else around him for obvious reasons, because the mission will fall apart or he'd be sent away, wouldn't be able to protect her, all that other stuff. And the other thing too, and this is maybe a bit of a Hitchcock issue and also a time period issue. A film like this would have been best if it focused specifically and strictly on Ingrid Bergman's character, because she is the catalyst to this film, everything that she does. And it does actually kind of point towards, Devlin being more of the main character at times than she is. And the film does, I think, suffer from that. And again, it's because of like how he's, part of that. I do think all of that actually dictates how his character is rolled out to us. He should be the leading man. I'm not taking that away from him. But if her character was like the main character with the most screen time, then I think we would have had a different feel of this movie and everything.
I think it is one of those things. I think there's there's two movies here. Like you said, there's the relationship aspect and there's the spy thriller aspect. And they don't blend easily, in part, I think, because I don't think Hitchcock was great at writing. This may be I've seen a few of his films, but he doesn't seem to have a great handle on the relationship stuff. People have said similar things, by the way. If you want a more modern comparison to this kind of directing, people have compared Hitchcock and to other directors like Stanley Kubrick. A very kind of clinical director. He does plots and tensions, but it doesn't do emotional resonance. People have said the same thing about Christopher Nolan's films, too. Oftentimes his films feel a little bit more cold and distant. And I think you see that in the relationship here because, really, like you said, the relationship he has, that Cary Grant's character has with Ingrid Bergman, it happens so quickly and with almost no background. You don't understand the basis for it. So it's like, and Ingrid Bergman does sell it. I mean, she's putting herself into it, so you believe it from her performance. But in Cary Grant, like I said, he's a little more colder and distant. So from his half, it kind of feels lesser. It's only half of a relationship being displayed, and it's only the superficial level of it because you're seeing the acting, but you're not getting the background and the basis for it. Why do they like each other so much? I mean, why do you like this person? I actually like Claude Rains in this movie better than Cary Grant. I'm going to put him a little higher on my enjoyment scale for this. And you, the fans out there, you tell us what you think. Who did you enjoy the most in the film? Tell us what you think, kind of a thing.
I think I like the spy thriller part of this a lot more. One of the reasons why is because Hitchcock is good at actually building up tension. Sometimes when you're watching like what would be a thriller or a horror film from, the olden times around this time period and everything, you can almost tell what's going to happen. You can kind of guess it if you're just, paying enough attention to it. There was a couple times in this movie that I was actually like, I don't know what's going to happen next. Specifically when they were down in the cellar during that party and everything and dealing with that. And one of the parts of this film that I did enjoy is how quickly the bad guys caught on to what was really happening. And I actually applauded that. I was like, okay, I didn't think they would go that. I kind of thought he would continue to be dumb until like there is some like big reveal, which would cause a big action scene. And then after the big action scene, everything comes down on the side of the good guys and whatnot. But that wasn't the case. He actually caught on, and that drove the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, which, I don't know if it ended the way I would have wanted it to end, but we can get that in a moment. But the fact that they were smart enough, like usually you don't get smart villains like that, you know?
No.
Oh, I've caught on really quick to what you're up to, and now I'm going to sneakily exact my revenge.
And
And
yeah,
that was
and in doing so, that is one of the things I do like about Hitchcock, because you think the whole tension is built up by the withhold, and are they going to be able to escape detection? And by answering that question fairly quickly, you then be able to turn the plot on a new kind of tension. You know, now that they know about it, what are they going to do with that knowledge?
you know what I really enjoyed about Claude Rains' character?
What's that?
Okay, so we see this trope that exists today. You see this, you know, depending on what you're reading or in real life or watching, you'll have this villain who is a mama's boy.
Yes.
And his character is very much a mama's boy, but
Yeah.
they're usually sniveling dummies. I don't know, idiots
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah, this is the thing.
He's not.
He's not.
He's
No.
very much not. That is one aspect of this film. His mother dictates a lot of his life. She pushes him in directions. She wants him to be this. She wants him to do this. And he does go along with it, but in his own way, he does his own thing. And when he starts doing his own thing, you know, he's able to realize, oh, this is what I've learned, mother. And instead of you're an idiot, you know, kind of calling her or him that, she's like, oh, we can fix this. And that's how, you know, we get to the coffee cup. And
Yes. Yeah.
But it's just you don't see that a lot.
You don't see that a lot. No.
These type of characters, and you know, they're like, you'll have the mother really be the big bad of a film, and they're the ones really pulling the strings, and she's not pulling as many strings as he's pulling.
It never takes over the main conflict of the story, but it does supply almost like a supporting role. There's supporting characters to main characters. There's this supporting tension between the mother and him because, like I said, they're more evenly matched. And you don't see that. And it's like you almost kind of wish that it wasn't just so one-sided, because that's less interesting than having two bad guys who, because let's face it, you know, bad guys, they're often at each other's throats. You know, they often have contradictory motivations. And so, but to see that so tense in its own, but not taking over the main plot, that's actually a good balancing act by Hitchcock.
I gotta give Hitchcock his flowers because he could have gone down that route and he decided not to.
Yeah.
Very much still doing some of the same Hitchcockian tropes. You know, unfortunately, I'm not saying like I feel bad about this, but I do think it plays into one of Hitchcock's biggest issues is the suffering woman trope. And I'm not saying they're not strong characters. I actually think he created plenty of strong characters that are women, but it's just like women are the ones that suffer the most in his stories. I think maybe if she didn't have to suffer as much as she suffered in this movie, I think it would have like maybe brought it down. It would have stuck the landing a bit stronger.
Yeah.
Because effectively this person, can I give this spoiler?
We're late enough in the show. You can give a spoiler.
I don't know if this is technically a spoiler, but this character who's been going through so much, she's got her own growth. She's, you know, committed to this plan. She's doing a lot. Unfortunately, because of how Hitchcock, you know, writes his women, what she winds up becoming is just the damsel in distress.
Yeah, you could say that. You could say it that way.
I think it could have been more.
Yeah.
Like, what if she's the one that saved Devlin instead of the other way around?
The thing that kind of drove me nuts, and it's weird that Hitchcock can do some plotting things so well. There's so many instances where Devlin is doing things that almost seemingly deliberately put her in danger. Like they're at the racetrack, right? And she's supposed to be keeping her communications pretty surreptitious, but he keeps asking her they keep meeting each other in full sight of the villains who are already suspicious of Devlin. They kind of know who he is too. They kind of suspect they know who he is and that he represents a threat to them. And they keep seeing her with him, and they keep agreeing to meet each other in places that this would happen. It's like this is not unforeseeable. And I think there's another scene at the party. She's having to be the one to go check on the wine. It's like, well, Devlin's there. He could do that. I mean, if you already got him in there anyway. But why are you having her? And then she's never going back. She's doing all these other things. And this is part of the writing. She's doing all these spy things away from talking to Devlin away from her quote-unquote husband, the one who she's supposed to be appearing to be, staying close to keep up the appearance of being married to him. But if you keep leaving him, he's going to notice this, especially when he sees you with Devlin. It's like over and over and over again this happened. And it's like that part drove me nuts.
Devlin being at the party in the first place, I thought that kind of threw me out of the film for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sometimes when I'm looking at a character, whether they're good or bad, and, I try to, I'll put myself in their shoes.
Yeah.
And go, all right, there's this guy that I'm already wary of. People already don't trust him. And he very clearly has like some kind of feelings for my fiance, my wife, whatever she is at that point.
Yeah.
He's not staying. This is my house. You don't get to be in my house. And that's one of my other issues. It's a small issue, I know.
Yeah.
But, and it's very clear every single time, they're with each other. There is this, tension, this romantic tension. Claude picks up on it. Claude's character picks up on it anyways. But the fact that he didn't pull the trigger sooner on this issue, I thought was a little bit like, that. But maybe, who knows, maybe that plays into how the film ends. That, he is this guy who is evil, but doesn't know how to push his way over the hump and everything. I don't know.
The film definitely portrays him as being evil, especially toward the end. You don't see it at the beginning. I will say that. He seems very charming and very personable at the beginning when you first meet him. The film shows it as he really does care for her. But then the moment he realizes, it's not genuine, it's not real, he's perfectly willing to kill her as a response. Yeah, I love the way that finally Cary Grant does the thing. I think this is my best Cary Grant moment for the film, is that when he finally realizes what's going on and he's determined to save her from the situation without much subterfuge at all, really. It's just kind of like Cary Grant is fully aware of and is using the vulnerability of the villains to keep them from stopping him. It is a great turning of the psychology at the end there that really, it's like, okay, you've ended it on a really high note. That was my favorite part of the film. And of course, Ingrid Bergman throughout, she's my other favorite part of the film.
This is one of the reasons why I will fall down into, I know we're kind of getting to the point where we're going to start talking about our ratings of the film. And there's a reason why I'm going to keep the same rating that I had last week when I talked about this. And it's because of the sinister overtones that are present throughout this whole entire movie. I think it's much more sinister when your bad guy is someone who is sitting in a nice house, having dinner, having a very civilized party.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I like that type of bad. There's a creepiness to it.
My instincts throughout the entire film were it belongs in the museum. But I'm not going to say someone's crazy for saying like, no way, that's at least a trust me or even a fortune and glory, because this is one that's going to depend on how sensitive you are to these things and how much you're bothered by the things we're talking about. Yeah, for me, this is a belongs in the museum because there's lots of good stuff here. This movie's not going to disappoint you. Your mileage may vary on just how much you get out of it, but you will get something out of it.
Yeah. I mean, mine's still Fortune and Glory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to detract from that at all. I can see how you got there. Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you, folks. I've already mentioned it. If it's as long as it stars Ingrid Bergman, it gets a notch up. It gets it doesn't have to go always the highest, but you're getting a good score from me because I think she delivers in everything that I've seen her in.
Ryan, you might be kind of painting yourself into a corner a bit because if you found yourself with a movie that had both Ingrid Bergman and Audrey Hepburn in it, you'd have nowhere else to go.
I would have nowhere else to go.
You have to change our rating system for that. That sounds like work, man.
It does sound like work.
Okay. So, as always, folks, we like to wrap our show by reminding our fellow cinematic adventurers that if you're enjoying this trip through time as much as we are, to go ahead and drop us a message on Facebook or YouTube. We're uploading video versions of the podcast now, and don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast purveyor of choice so you never miss an episode. And speaking of future episodes, Ryan, tell us what left field choice we've got lined up for the folks next week.
Next week, we're going to be diving into the comics of a Sunday newspaper. Folks, we are going to be going into the life of the Dagwoods. I think that's his name.
Dagwood and Blondie,
it's
yeah.
Dagwood and Blondie. I don't know what is their last name.
I don't... do we ever find that out? I'm
not entirely sure. We're going to find that out, folks. We'll tell you next week if they have one. Yeah, but the movie is specifically Blondie because she was the character at first. She was the main character, but it is about Blondie, Dagwood, and their younger son.
Yep, that's what we're doing.
We're hoping for the best.
Preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah, we're excited. I'm excited. I'm
interested. I'm curiously interested. So that sounds really good. So I guess we'll see you guys next week. And Ryan, I'll see you next week. All right?
See you next week, buddy.